Haruhiro and his friends are hunting in the forest, but their lack of skill and intelligence is clear as they struggle against a single goblin. It's not just him, his entire squad is having a hard time taking down that one goblin. This reminds me of that one anime, what was its name again?
Do you mean Goblin Slayer?
Yeah, that one. That guy would definitely not be happy with how they're handling this. Their leader tries to motivate them, reminding them that both they and the goblin are fighting for their lives. It's kill or be killed, but it looks like the goblin is just toying with them. After fleeing the monsters, the group returns to camp. The next day, Minato wakes up Ranta and Haruhiro for breakfast. Outside, Moguzo, Yume, and Shihiro cook the meal. As they eat, Minato mentions they've never defeated a monster and need to save money. Ranta suggests fighting more goblins, but Minato warns him not to treat life like a game. Haruhiro, confused, asks about the word, and Minato admits he doesn't understand it either. Haruhiro realizes the team often uses words they don't fully understand. He remembers the first time he came to the world of Grimgar. He and his friends were transported to another world with others without any memories. They traveled to a town called Ortan, where they met Brittany, a captain of the Ortana border guard. Renji, a tough guy in the group, challenged Brittany, who quickly shut him up. Brittany then gave the kids money and ordered them to join the volunteer soldier squad. The kids learned that they had to fight monsters for the army to earn money, otherwise they would get punished. After joining the soldier squad, Minato formed a group with Haruhiro and the others. Unfortunately, their team is weaker than Renji's, who had already gotten their first promotion. To get stronger, the kids visit different guilds for training. Haruhiro gets trained by a hot thief named Barbara, who gives him the title of Old Cat because of his sleepy eyes. I think I like Barbara.
Ugh, I think I know why.
The rest of the team completed their training. Yume became a hunter, Moguso a warrior, Ranta a dark knight, Shihiro a mage, and Minato a priest. In the present, the team sets out for another fight. As they rest, Ranta makes fun of Yume's horrible poor aim. He thinks that her chest is too flat to forgive her, saying that Shihiro is much bigger. Shihiro gets embarrassed and starts crying, thinking she is fat.
She's not even fat. Why is she even saying that?
She's definitely tripping. On God, she's not even fat. Yume comforts her before glaring at Ranta. After lunch, the kids try to defeat more monsters, but fail again, leaving them without money or food. Haruhiro wonders if he'll survive this world before monsters or hunger get him. Later at night, Haruhiro isn't feeling sleepy, so he gets up to take a walk. He finds Minato outside, who has just returned from a tavern. Minato explains that he visits the tavern sometimes to drink and gather information on monsters from other adventurers. He tells Haruhiro that he has found a new place where they can hunt weaker monsters. Haruhiro thanks Minato after realizing how much effort he spends to help his friends. Sitting with him, Haruhiro looks up at the red moon in the sky. Even though he doesn't remember his old world, he knows that the moon in his world was never red. The next day, the group goes back to the forest. This time, Haruhiro finds a goblin sitting alone near a river. He alerts the rest of his team about the goblin, and they get ready to attack it together. However, Ranta is too impatient and rushes to attack it all alone. Everyone else is forced to join without a plan as the goblin sees them and starts defending itself. Moguzo distracts the goblin, and Ranta manages to hit it. When he sees that he has hurt a living creature, Ranta's hands shake with guilt. However, the goblin starts roaring to scare the group, reminding them that they're all fighting for their lives. Hearing this, everyone remembers their goal and begins fighting again. Suddenly, the goblin hits Haruhiro and pins him to the ground. Haruhiro screams in pain and attacks its neck, but the goblin is too powerful. Finally, Ranta saves Haruhiro from the goblin, and Moguzo knocks it out by hitting its head. Yumi rushes over to help Haruhiro, and everyone else relaxes after the battle is over. Ranta checks the goblin's body for some treasure, but it suddenly wakes up and starts running away. Ranta angrily chases after it and finally knocks it down before finishing the job. Tears start falling from his face once Ranta realizes what he has done to the monster. After returning from the forest, the group sells some treasures from the goblin for some money. Haruhiro sees Ranta quietly sitting in a corner of the town and asks what's wrong. Ranta is upset and tells Haruhiro it's none of his business. He then explains that even though defeating the monster doesn't feel good, he has gotten his first vice. Haruhiro learns that vices are tokens that soldiers can collect to summon a demon. Demons help soldiers in finding enemies. Haruhiro doesn't feel too impressed, but Minato comes up to him, saying that a demon would perfectly suit the impatient Ranta. Suddenly, Ranta gets scared by a monster's voice. He jumps in surprise, but finds out that it's just Yume making cat noises. The group cheers up after chatting and joking, noticing the sunset's soft glow shining on them. At night, Haruhiro thinks about asking Minato some serious questions, but stops himself. Ranta then gets out of bed to leave, confusing the other boys. Ranta proudly announces that he's going to peek into the girls' bath. Now that's definitely something I would do.
Can you be serious for a second?
All the boys try to stop him, but Ranta's intrusive thoughts are too much, and he runs out to the bath. The guys follow him there, only to find Ranta getting kicked out by the screaming girls. The rest of the boys apologize to the girls while Ranta tries to defend himself. He says that it was just an accident, but Yumi doesn't believe him. To prove that it was an accident, Ranta says that he didn't want to look at Yum's chest because it was flat. Yum just gets even angrier because of this and smacks him. After this incident, everyone in the group gets in a bad mood. It also starts raining in the area, which makes it harder for them to find and defeat monsters for money. Yume gets up to search for monsters, and Haruhiro follows her. She talks about the bath incident, and Haruhiro apologizes to her once again. The two of them then see multiple monsters in the area, so they return to their group to warn everyone. With heavy hearts, everyone prepares to go back to town without any money in hand. For the next few days, the rain keeps ruining everything, and the group earns no money. Things get so bad that Haruhiro is forced to go without underwear instead of putting on new pairs. After he finishes washing himself, Shihoru comes into his room wearing smaller clothes. Feeling embarrassed, Haruhiro leaves the room and realizes that she might not be wearing underwear either. Then Yumi also goes into the room to wash up. Haruhiro notices Ranta about to go in, so he tries to protect the girls from his thirsty eyes. Ranta feels suspicious of Haruhiro's actions, but he follows him upstairs anyway. The next day, the group finds a ruined town called Damaro. They find some weak goblins there, which they can easily defeat. After defeating their first goblin, everyone cheers up, feeling hopeful for their future. They start regularly visiting Damaro and get stronger every day. Soon, they get strong enough to handle more than one goblin at once. After defeating more and more monsters, the group finally gets the money to eat and buy new clothes. Haruhiro feels delighted to finally get some new underwear, and Ranta spends all his money on cheap food. The girls try to buy some bags at a stall, but Shihoru notices Minato walking around. Yume sees this and asks if she wants to talk to Minato, and Shihoru shyly nods. Back at the hotel, Haruhiro polishes a new weapon. Ranta returns with some bags of food, but Minato requests that the boys try to save some money for new skills. After a few days, Haruhiro thanks Minato for leading their group through some tough times. Minato points out that even though he is the leader, he couldn't have survived all the battles and hard days without all his friends. Then, Haruhiro asks Minato why he didn't make more friends and create a stronger party. Minato explains that he didn't want to beg arrogant people to join his party, so he never tried. Haruhiro tells Minato that he is doing the right thing by doing what he wants. He lies down to sleep, feeling relaxed after suffering through all those days of hardship. Everyone else also sleeps peacefully, finally feeling hopeful in this cruel world. The next morning, Shihoru goes outside the hotel with Minato to feed some birds. Minato puts out some bread for the birds to eat. When they start flying over, Minato asks Shihoru if she wants to feed them as well. When she shyly refuses, Minato encourages her to do it, saying the birds won't attack her. Shihoru finally decides to be brave and starts feeding the birds with her hand. Suddenly, a bird flies too close to her, and she gets startled and falls to the ground. Minato jumps down and catches her with his arm. After helping her stand up, he smiles and tells Shihoru that he's happy she is finally talking to him. Shihoru feels happy that her crush likes her back and goes back to the hotel with a happy heart. Later, the group once again goes to Damuro. They make their plan and begin fighting some more goblins. Ranta displays his new skill, Anger, which increases his power. Yume also uses her diagonal slash skill to take out a goblin, finally being useful instead of missing all her arrows. Haruhiro rushes in and finishes the job with one hit. He feels surprised that the goblin went down in one hit and wonders if he has a skill that helps him hit weak points. Meanwhile, Shihoru uses her skill Shadow Beat to stun a goblin, and Moguso finishes off the monster with his new thank you skill. With their new powers, the kids end the battle easily. After the fight is over, they settle down to have lunch. Yume prays to her god to protect her while she hunts. She begins babbling about how the hunting god is her best friend, and Minato smiles after seeing how happy she is. He thinks that they've become a great party, being able to take on 3 goblins at once now.
Uh-oh, I have a bad feeling about this.
I agree. Everything is going a bit too well. Minato starts praising each of the members, feeling like all their different roles help cover their weaknesses. He thinks Moguzo is a great defender, Ranta a great attacker, and Yume and Shihoru great supporters. Then, he notices that it's getting late and gets up to go back to town. A tired Minato lets down his guard as Haruhiro thinks about asking him about his performance. Haruhiro's thoughts are interrupted when a bright light shines from the roof of a nearby building. He rushes to protect Minato and gets hit by an arrow in the shoulder. Minato drags Haruhiro away to heal him as Haruhiro drops his weapon. Suddenly, a big, strong goblin comes out to attack the group head-on. Minato quickly tells the others to retreat, and they use some underground tunnels to escape from the attacks. After everyone else has run away to a safe distance, Minato is the last one to leave the tunnel and run. A goblin finds him running away and shoots an arrow into his back. Haruhiro notices Minato stopping because of the pain, but Minato tells him that he's fine. The team runs away from the town to rest in the forest. Everyone breathes heavily. feeling relieved that they all survived that dangerous trap. Suddenly, Minato falls to the ground and Haruhiro finally notices the arrow in his back. He holds up Minato and asks him to use his healing magic on himself. However, Minato ran out of magic after healing Haruhiro's injury, leaving him unable to heal himself. Everyone panics and Haruhiro does his best to save their leader. Sadly, Minato asks Haruhiro to take care of the party, saying his final goodbye before passing out from the wound. The kids desperately take Minato to a priest to heal him, but the old man tells them that their friend has already left the world. The kids are shocked and refuse to accept their loss. The priest knows they are in great pain, but reminds them that they need to cremate their friend before his body gets cursed and turned into a zombie. After hearing these words, Moguzo finally realizes that his friend and leader is truly gone from the world. A heartbroken Shihoru falls to her knees at this news, having a panic attack from the shock. The priest offers to pay for Minato's funeral, but Haruhiro refuses, saying he can at least do this much for his friend. Filled with happiness and hope, just a few hours ago, the kids are forced to watch as their friend's body turns into ash. As they bury the ashes in a graveyard, the kids learn life's harshest lesson. Haruhiro sits down and recalls how much the funeral cost. The space for the grave only costs 1 silver coin, and Haruhiro wonders if human life is just worth that tiny amount. Ranta gets angry that everyone is just sitting there quietly. He gets up to leave, feeling angry that they're all wasting time and feeling sad about their loss. Yum gets angry at his cold words, and Ranta realizes how wrong he was. He quietly leaves as Yum starts crying, while Haruhiro wonders what to do next. Now that he knows Minato isn't here to give him any advice, Haruhiro realizes how much he is going to miss his old friend. Moguzo later goes with Haruhiro to find Ranta at a tavern. They sit down with him to talk and have a few drinks together. Ranta feels sad remembering that Minato used to drink at this tavern as well. Then he lashes out, complaining that their lives as soldiers made them lose their friends. Haruhiro reminds him that they had no choice, and Moguzo calms down the two boys. Ranta then asks Haruhiro how they will continue their adventures without their leader, saying it's his fault Minato ran out of magic. Haruhiro feels hurt that Ranta is blaming him, but he can't defend himself either. Seeing the fight get worse, Moguzo suddenly shouts and calms both boys down. Ranta almost wets himself, realizing it's a bad idea to offend this large man. He explains that he wasn't angry at Haruhiro, but was just feeling hopeless because of his loss. Haruhiro sadly points out that even though they all suffered a huge loss, they can't just stop trying to live. Before Ranta can discuss getting another job, a loud guy named Kikuwa comes over to their table. He asks the boys how they're doing in their town. Kikuwa wonders why Minato hasn't been coming over. He thinks that his old friend is finally getting ready for marriage, but Ranta tells him that Minato is no longer in this world. Kikuwa apologizes for bringing up a sensitive topic before sitting down at their table. He offers to get them some new party members, which Haruhiro refuses. Kikuwa notes that Minato was a priest, and he was the most precious member of the party. This news surprises the boys, and Kikuwa laughs, saying that the fighters must make sure the enemy can't hurt their priest. The boys feel ashamed that they lost their friend just because they didn't know some basics. Kikuwa tells them that feeling sad about the past won't help and they need to move forward. Ranta asks him where they can get a new priest, and Kikuwa tells him that he knows some priests who might join. The next day, a young girl named Mary joins Haruhiro's party as the new priest. Everyone feels awkward in front of this new teammate, but Mary doesn't care. She calmly asks Haruhiro where they are going and requests him to lead the way there. Later at night, Ranta complains about Mary's attitude. Haruhiro feels too tired to comfort Ranta, remembering how unhelpful Mary was in their battle. Mary refused to even go out and heal their teammates, saying she couldn't risk her life. Ranta got upset at her, but because Mary didn't care, he couldn't force her to do anything. Ranta asks Moguzo if he feels angry at Mary's behavior. Even the gentle Moguzo feels upset because of Mary's careless attitude. He remembers that Mary refused to heal one of Ranta's wounds because she didn't think it was necessary. Haruhiro feels depressed thinking about it, wishing his confident friend was here to handle the situation. Ranta thinks that they should set a goal they should try to achieve. Haruhiro wonders what it should be, and he notices the people in the tavern whispering about some new guys. It's Renji with his group entering the tavern. Renji heads straight for Haruhiro and drops him a gold coin. He explains that he wants to help Haruhiro's team since Minato has said goodbye, but Haruhiro refuses to accept his gift. Renji notices that Haruhiro doesn't want to depend on him, so he quietly leaves. Ranta screams at Haruhiro for ruining their opportunity, but Moguzo points out that cheating with a gift isn't a good thing either. Haruhiro also notes that their bad performance in fights is not just Mary's fault. fault, he thinks that the other two girls have also stayed silent, which has caused a lot of problems with their teamwork. Ranta asks him how he will help the girls feel better, but Haruhiro has no plan for that either. Later at night, Haruhiro asks Yume if she is mad and she starts crying, saying that's not what happened. She tells him that nobody has even asked her and Shihoru about their feelings, and they have just kept them buried inside. Haruhiro points out that it was hard for him to talk to everyone else about his feelings as well. Yume nods, saying it was everyone's fault that they all got into a bad mood. The two of them hug each other for comfort, and Haruhiro remembers everything that Minato did for him. After holding back his pain for so long, Haruhiro finally starts crying in Yume's lap. He calms down after a while and apologizes to her for shutting everyone out. Feeling relieved, Yume hugs Haruhiro tightly. Shihoru watches the scene from her window, thinking they are doing something else. Haruhiro quickly starts screaming to explain they weren't doing anything wrong, while Yume feels confused. Once she realizes what happened, her face turns tomato red as well. Shihoru apologizes to both of them after understanding they were doing nothing wrong. She thought they were in a relationship, and her words wake up Ranta, who jealously starts screaming at Haruhiro. Haruhiro says that they were just talking about something, but Yumi defends herself, saying they were just hugging each other very tightly. This makes Ranta lose all control, and Haruhiro starts screaming from embarrassment. Haruhiro is tweaking for no reason. I would love to be in his position. Wouldn't you, Emma?
Jeez, you're so annoying, Ken. Let me tell the story now before you start yapping about something else. Later, Ranta calms down after learning it was nothing serious. The group then discusses how to deal with Mary. They realize that they were also very unfriendly to her and decide to change their attitude. The next day, the group meets up with Mary to go hunting. Haruhiro greets her with a good morning, but Mary leaves him hanging after staying silent. Haruhiro starts walking like nothing happened, but hears her say good morning in a soft voice, showing that she has changed. While walking to their destination, the other girls also try to talk with Mary, but she seems too bored to talk with them. They finally reach Demuro and start fighting goblins as usual. Moguzo gets hit by a goblin and stands back, but Mary tells him to keep pushing the weak goblin away. Then, Haruhiro swoops in and finishes off the goblin with a single attack. After the fight is over, Haruhiro notices Mary healing Moguzo's wound. Ranta asks her to heal him as well, but she doesn't want to waste her magic on his little cut. Haruhiro later discusses Mary's healing style. He tells her that Minato didn't wait until the fighting was over, since he wanted his teammates to always be in full health. Haruhiro asks her to explain why she has a different healing style, but Mary refuses to talk. She thinks he is just tired of her and offers to leave the party, which surprises Haruhiro. He explains that he doesn't want her to leave, feeling frustrated with her lack of communication. Later at night, Haruhiro thinks about the responsibility Minato left him with. The heavy burden of being the leader makes Haruhiro wish he could quit this job. However, Minato's voice in his head encourages Haruhiro to keep going. Haruhiro thinks there is no way he can do it, but realizes how disappointed Minato would be because of him, so he decides to try again. The next day, Haruhiro tries paying more attention to his teammates. He notices that Moguzo is very careful in battle because he doesn't have a helmet. Haruhiro then notices Mary praying for a defeated goblin, realizing he knows nothing about her beliefs. After their battle, he offers to buy a new helmet for Moguzo with his own money. Mary notices this but keeps quiet. Suddenly, a goblin jumps out and attacks Shihoru. Mary quickly defeats it with her staff, proving that she is not just a weak priest who needs protection. Haruhiro thanks her for protecting Shihoru and asks her if she wants to have dinner with the group. Mary refuses the offer and tries to say something else but stops from shyness. Yume smiles, thinking that Mary tried to talk to them this time, and Haruhiro hopes that she has changed. Before heading to the tavern, Haruhiro decides to ask Mary's old teammate about her past. He explains that Mary used to be the priest in their team, much different than she is today. In the past, Mary was a happy girl, and she used to heal her team whenever they needed it. The rest of the team kept fighting, feeling confident with Mary on their side. However, one day in the Cyrene mines, they became overconfident. Despite the battles getting harder and harder, they kept going deeper into the mines until they ran into a giant monster named Death Spots. This monster was too strong, and it defeated two of their teammates. As their leader tried his best to hold back the monster, Mary kept crying since she was out of magic to heal him. The team leader told Mary to run away with her friend, but of course, she didn't want to leave him alone. Mary screamed as her friend ran away with her, leaving their leader in the hands of the monster. After that day, Mary escaped the mine with her only remaining friend. She stopped smiling, feeling responsible for the loss of 3 of her precious friends. Mary's friend explains that she didn't join a new party with him because seeing him reminded her of painful memories. Afterward, she kept joining new parties, but never stayed too long in any of them. Her friend thinks that Mary still hasn't moved on from the accident in the mines and requests Haruhiro's team to help her be happy again. The leader of his party advises the group to move on even after losing their friends, reminding them that their lives are very precious and they can lose them at any time in this cruel world. After this chat, Haruhiro's group returns home. Ranta thinks that just because Mary lost her friends doesn't mean they should forgive her. He argues that they have also lost their friend Minato, just like Mary lost her friends. So she is no different. A crying Shihoru thinks that even though Mary has not shown any sympathy for their loss, they should still try to understand her pain and become friends with her. Haruhiro points out to Ranta that if Mary is the same as them, they should accept her into their group and learn more about her. Ranta thinks that Haruhiro is a hypocrite because he always ignores Ranta's own opinions. Haruhiro feels guilty about this and promises him that he will try to be a better leader for him. Haruhiro's apology shocks Ranta so much that he turns into a tsundere, calling him baka as he gets up to leave. Ranta finally says sorry to Shihoru for bringing up the painful matter before he leaves. The next day, Haruhiro and Yume search for goblins. They find a goblin with a familiar knife in its hands that Haruhiro dropped. Haruhiro gets angry at this goblin, but Yume stops him from attacking without a plan. After calming down, Haruhiro heads back to his party to make a plan. He asks Mary to tell him something, and she immediately thinks that he wants her to leave. Haruhiro realizes that Mary also feels how awkward everyone else is around her. He tells her he doesn't want her to leave. Haruhiro then tells her how Minato was their best friend who had created their team from a bunch of losers nobody else wanted. He had been a great friend, and everyone depended on his help to succeed. Haruhiro thinks that Mary is also their friend, and she needs their help just as much as they need hers. Everyone else agrees with Haruhiro, which results in shocking Mary. Later, after returning home, Haruhiro buys a new helmet for Moguzo. Now, friends with Mary, the group's teamwork improves, and they train every day in Damuro. All of them get better equipment and learn new skills, getting ready to take on the goblins that took away their friend. Haruhiro relaxes outside his hotel, thinking about how much progress he has made now. He feels confident that he can survive in this world with his friends, and Minato would be happy to see how they are all doing. The kids leave for Damuro the next day, ready to get their revenge. They all place their hands on each other's and discuss their plan. Mary asks Haruhiro if he's ready for this battle. Haruhiro is ready for the battle, since he can never forgive the goblins for taking his friend. Mary nods, knowing what it's like to feel responsible for her friend's life. Despite the serious conversation going on, Ranta notices that Mary has given Haruhiro a new nickname and feels jealous of him. Near the goblins' hideout, some of them guard the area while others relax and play. Haruhiro's group sneaks close, and Yume begins the attack by taking out an archer from a tower. Haruhiro follows up by rushing in and taking out a guard at the entrance. The rest of the group runs into the building and starts exploring the inside. Some goblins try to stop the kids, but Moguzo leads the charge and they easily defeat them. The goblins' backup arrives, and the big guy who attacked them in the past starts fighting off Moguzo. Meanwhile, the leader of the goblins charges at Haruhiro, who holds him back. Haruhiro pins the monster down and tries to attack him, but the goblin defends himself and shakes him off. The rest of the group finishes off the other goblins, which only leaves their leader. With some cold words, Ranta raises his hands, preparing to end the goblin, but suddenly, an arrow flashes by and hits Mary's back. As she is falling, Haruhiro remembers losing Minato the same way. Determined to not let it happen again, he tries to save Mary. He leaves Shihoru to treat Mary's wound and goes after the goblin that attacked her. On the building's roof, Haruhiro sees the little devil that took out Minato. He attacks the goblin, but it's surprisingly strong and takes him down. Thankfully, Haruhiro still has a weapon and ends the goblin, completing his revenge. After avenging Minato, Haruhiro's group heads to his grave. Haruhiro remembers thinking of Minato as if he were a perfect man. He realizes that Minato was never perfect, but he always hid his weaknesses to give confidence to his team. Haruhiro tells Minato that the entire team has become real soldiers and is living their lives comfortably in Grimgar. Everyone else smiles as well, and Shihoru places down one last badge on Manito's grave, hoping he can hear her from heaven. After paying their respects to Minato, Haruhiro and Mary begin heading back home. Mary calls Haruhiro by his nickname, nickname, asking why he doesn't look happy even after avenging his friend. Haruhiro is more surprised that she used a nickname for him, which embarrasses Mary. Then he tells her that the pain from losing Minato cannot heal so quickly. Haruhiro then apologizes to Mary for telling her everything about their loss, since she had also suffered the same way in the past. She feels surprised that Haruhiro knows about her past, but doesn't mind learning about Minato even if it is painful for her. After their big battle, the kids decide to take the day off and relax. At night, they enjoy their time drinking at the tavern. Kikawa informs them that Damuro is not safe anymore. A new party attacked some goblins nearby, which moved into the city and made it dangerous. Haruhiro's group wonders what to do next, since they used to earn all their money from Damuro. Moguzo suggests using another location, and Haruhiro thinks that the Serene Mines might be a good place. Yume reminds Haruhiro that the powerful monster Death Spots lives in the Serene Mine with a big bounty on its head. Haruhiro explains that he wants to go there because they don't know about the other areas, and Mary is familiar with the mine. He also thinks that fighting new enemies is good for training their skills and getting more experience. However, Mary starts panicking at the thought of going back to the dark mines and leaves the tavern. Haruhiro follows her to a rooftop where she kneels and apologizes to him. He understands that it will be difficult for Mary to go back to the place where she lost her friends. Mary thinks that she might not be able to stay calm in the mine. However, she also wants to overcome her biggest fear with the help of her friends. Hearing this, Haruhiro cries tears of joy, feeling happy that Mary considers him her friend. He tells her that she is someone important to him, and he will do his best to help her.
Not gonna lie, he is rizzing her up a bit.
Oh my god, stop, Ken. Cheered up, Mary finally stands up and thanks Haruhiro. They head back and begin training again to get ready for this new dungeon. Haruhiro goes back to his old teacher Barbara. He thinks he is strong enough to defeat her in training, but Barbara proves him wrong by rolling him around like Play-Doh. She stomps his face and sits on him as Haruhiro asks her for life advice. Barbara wonders if he's interested in one of the girls in his party, but Haruhiro changes the topic, asking about his strange detection skill. Barbara thinks that having a sixth sense for detecting an enemy's weak point is not an amazing skill, but something that comes with experience. She tells him to keep fighting and learning more about his powers, as she keeps humiliating the poor boy. Once everyone has finished their training, they head out to enter the Serene Mines. They make their way to a snowy mountain where the mine is located, and Mary prepares herself to face her worst fear. The group enters the mine and begins exploring it. On their way, they fight some kobolds. Everyone enjoys fighting with their new skills as they easily take out weak enemies. Mary bursts everyone's bubble by reminding them that they are just fighting the weakest opponents at this level. While taking away some treasures from the monsters, Haruhiro feels guilty for invading the monsters' land. After gathering all their treasures, everyone starts heading deeper into the mine. They use ropes and caves to go down, but suddenly stop when they hear some snoring noises. Ranta notices the sleeping kobold and decides to take the chance to attack it. When everyone tells him it's a stupid idea, he starts yapping about how attacking an innocent, sleeping monster is a good idea. Sadly for him, nobody cares about his speech, and they all leave without him. Ranta realizes his mistake and follows everyone down, where they fight even more monsters. After completing this battle, Ranta feels ready to fight even more, but Haruhiro decides to go back to town. Haruhiro explains that he wants everyone to rest and be ready before heading down to more dangerous levels. But this just angers Ranta, who thinks he is a coward. After returning to town, Haruhiro thinks that Ranta was never so angry under Minato's leadership. He asks Ranta what he thinks about the party, but Ranta refuses to give a clear answer. He tells Haruhiro that he has been doing his job for the party, even taking out a whole monster on his own. Haruhiro thinks that it wasn't anything special because the whole team could have destroyed the monster in an instant. Ranta points out that Haruhiro doesn't use his teammates' full strength, since Ranta could have taken down the monster on his own, leaving the other teammates free to deal with other monsters. At this, Haruhiro realizes his mistake and calms down. He realizes that he always wanted to protect Ranta because he isn't a tank like Moguzo. He tells Ranta that they need to discuss their problems more, but Ranta thinks that it's Haruhiro's job to know about it anyway. Then, Ranta points his finger at Haruhiro, saying that he's always blaming him for everything. He asks Haruhiro to tell him about his weakness, which shuts him up. Ranta laughs at this, saying he doesn't care that the team is getting along since none of them realize their weaknesses. He gets up and leaves, leaving Haruhiro frustrated again. After resting up, the group heads back down to the mines. They fight stronger monsters, using their new skills and experience to take them all down. An angry Haruhiro unleashes powerful attacks, still upset about Ranta's actions, but he decides to calm himself down. After some time, they enter a new level where a green farm stretches out. The group sees little animals running around the grass, while kobolds kobolds guard everything from a distance. Everyone discusses what to do next, but suddenly, because of Ranta's movement, a trap goes off, and an alarm alerts all the monsters. Mary tells the group that they should try to run down to a lower level since the monsters have an advantage in the open fields. She looks around them, but suddenly starts panicking after seeing a certain beast. Haruhiro realizes that it's her greatest enemy, the death spots, and tells everyone else to be careful. With Mary in shock, they need to get out of there alive. Mary finds herself outside the mine's entrance once again, this time with her old teammates. Her leader gives her a weapon to get ready to head down. Mary jokes around with everyone, feeling happy to be with them again. As she begins heading into the mine's entrance, Mary starts hearing her name. When her teammate turns to ask her what happened, Mary wakes up from her dream and sees Haruhiro in front of her. She sees everyone around her and calms down. Death Spots looks around them and leaves, and Mary leads everyone away from him. They head down to the 5th level of the mine, which is a hot area filled with lava. Even though it's the place where Mary was forced to say goodbye to her friends, she calmly tells everyone that there is a safe area inside. After the kids take out a guard and sneak around some more security, they head through a tunnel and enter an old temple. This is the resting area Mary mentioned, and everyone sits down there to relax. Mary walks around and finds her old staff lying on the ground. Suddenly, Yumi hears some strange noises. Ranta throws a light at the sound and sees some creepy people walking toward them. Haruhiro remembers that people who can't get buried turn into zombies, and Mary recognizes these zombies as her old teammates. She asks her friends if they remember her, but they simply unleash attacks on the whole group. Mary sighs and gets ready to bring her friends back to normal. Haruhiro knows that she has a spell that can remove the curse from zombies. The fight begins, and Haruhiro divides everyone into teams to handle each of the zombies. He sees Ranta fighting head-on with a thief. Haruhiro realizes that Mary's old teammates are very powerful, but he sees her head deeper to reach her friends. She grabs one of them and hugs them while casting the spell. The spell returns the girl to her old body before she turns into ash. Then, with the group's help, Mary reaches the thief and hugs him as well, returning him to ash. Finally, she gets her team leader Michiki and removes his curse with tears in her eyes. As Mary holds the crumbling ashes of her fallen friends, everyone goes silent, thinking about how all these people with their thoughts and dreams were turned into mindless puppets after one mistake. On the other hand, Mary feels relieved that she finally got rid of this burden on her mind. Everyone else then feels motivated after this experience. They decide to get as strong as Mary's old teammates, making plans for the future. Haruhiro smiles at everyone, feeling like the only thing he wants is for everyone to grow stronger and achieve their dreams. The break session gets interrupted when suddenly, Death Spots bursts into the room. It immediately attacks Ranta as everyone tries to run away. Death Spots then roars out to its fellow kobolds to track them down. While they are running away back to the 5th level, Shihoru gets trapped. The team manages to save her and keeps moving forward. Then, they all jump off a bridge to the top of a mine shaft to shake off their attackers. The kobold soldiers are unable to reach them through the massive gap, but Death Spots grows angry and shakes the foundation of the platform they are standing on. This causes Haruhiro to fall from the top. Somehow, Ranta climbs down and manages to grab Haruhiro's hand. Haruhiro tells Ranta to save himself, but Ranta forces him to climb back up the walls. With Ranta's help, Haruhiro climbs back to the top. Ranta comes following him, but Death Spots throws a rock at him, which destroys the floor below him. Ranta falls safely but far away from the group. He tells Haruhiro and the others to save themselves and run away. Haruhiro goes back to his group and informs everyone about Ranta's situation. They all feel like it is hopeless, but Haruhiro thinks that there is a small chance they might be able to save him. Even if it means risking everyone's lives, he decides to go back with everyone to take their friend with them. As everyone begins rushing to reach Ranta, Ranta himself stands his ground against all the kobolds in the mine. He screams, ready for the fight of his life while his friends wish he stays safe. Somehow, Ranta manages to escape from Death Spots and get back to the farm. He meets some giant animals who seem interested in him. Ranta tries to get away from them, but the pigs squish him tightly. It helps him out though, because the large animals hide Ranta from the farm guards. He calls his pet demon to help him out, but the little rascal just wants to see his own master become dog food. Back at the mine, Yumi starts crying while thinking about what Ranta is suffering. Haruhiro gives her hope, saying Ranta is too stubborn to lose his life like that. On the farm, a kobold guard sees something suspicious and investigates the animals around Ranta. Suddenly, a blade shoots out and takes out the guard, which alerts the other kobolds in the area. Ranta is forced to jump out and run to another area. Haruhiro's group has also made it to the farm area, and they see Ranta's body running around in the distance. While Death Spots bangs on the door outside, Ranta locks himself inside a house, praying to God that he lives. Suddenly, Death Spots breaks the house's roof and charges at Ranta. An arrow hits the kobold in the eye, which slows it down and gives Ranta enough time to escape into Haruhiro's arms. Ranta starts crying from relief while Mary and the others handle the monsters. He gets back into fighting form as Shihoru unleashes her spells to take out hordes of kobolds. The smoke from her attack distracts Death Spots, and the kids use this chance to run away from the field. They get down to another part of the mine where they're safe. Yumi notices Ranta crying and teases him about it. Ranta tells her that when he thought about returning to her, he started feeling strange things in his chest, but that word only reminds him of Yume's own flat chest, which upsets her once again. As the two of them argue, Haruhiro thinks about himself. He realizes that he has been trying to imitate Minato, but that never worked for him. Haruhiro has different strengths and weaknesses from Minato, but with his friends, all of his weaknesses are covered up. With their support, Haruhiro keeps moving, trying to get back to town safe and sound. Mary and Shihoru request some rest since they have lost all their magic. Once the girls have rested, they begin moving again. On the final floor of the mine, the pesky Death Spots comes back to haunt the kids like an annoying ghost. Haruhiro realizes that there is no escape from him, so he decides to sacrifice himself for his teammates. He attacks Death Spots after ordering the others to run away. Haruhiro manages to get Death Spots stuck before making both of them fall to the bottom of the mine. Mary looks over, worried sick for Haruhiro, but Ranta comes back to drag her away. Lying on the bottom floor, Haruhiro slowly notices Mary crying and screaming his name as Ranta drags her away. He feels like it's over for him, but Ranta screams at him to never give up. This gives Haruhiro the energy to get back up again. Death Spots also gets back up, and the two of them get trapped in a final showdown. Haruhiro realizes that it might be his final day, and he throws away his soldier badge for people to recover later. When he gets ready to fight, though, some strange energy waves surround Haruhiro and Death Spots. Haruhiro feels like Death Spots has stopped moving, but he realizes that the monster is just moving very slowly. He takes this chance to empty his mind and easily avoid the monster's attack before climbing onto its neck. The monster unleashes another attack on Haruhiro, but its blade is too slow to hit him. Haruhiro easily deflects its blade and finally defeats the terrifying monster. After finishing this battle, Haruhiro also passes out. He later wakes up to see Mary in front of him, thinking he is in heaven. When Mary starts laughing, he realizes that he's not in heaven, but alive and back in town. He goes out and meets the rest of the team as well. Ranta shows a confused Haruhiro the reward money for defeating Death Spots. Haruhiro finally learns that he had won the battle, and his friends went back to rescue him. Somewhere else, Captain Brittany takes off the wanted poster for Death Spots. He feels happy that the random kids he took in have come this far. Back at the tavern, Haruhiro's group throws a party with everyone else. Renji also apologizes to Haruhiro for being so cold to him when Minato left. Haruhiro forgives him, saying that he just didn't want to accept any help out of his own pride. Then, he announces to everyone that he'll treat them all to some good drinks. After finishing his celebrations, Haruhiro goes back to Minato's grave to talk to him. He hears Minato in his head, who asks him if he found it hard being a leader. Haruhiro tells Minato that he doesn't know if it is hard, and Minato points out that he has grown taller. This surprises Haruhiro, but he learns that everyone grows every day. Living another day allows people to grow into the person they will become in the future. With this teaching in mind, he goes back to his friends. As time passes, Haruhiro forgets more and more about his past life and world. However, with all his friends nearby, he feels happy about his new life, ready to explore the happiness and sadness of this rich world. And this is where our story comes to an end. Ken, what did you think of my narration? Was it any good?
You did well, but more importantly, this last episode really tied things together well. And I thought it was an interesting isekai overall. It also looked really good.
Yeah, I thought so too.
Okay guys, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel. See ya.
Bye-bye.